أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Youth Forum with me, SYED WAFIQ, as the host. With me, alongside me, are the three weekly guests, Syed Hazar Abidi,
Assalamu alaikum.
Syed Ja'far Al-Hashimi,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
and Syed Zaikham Ali Shan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Today's program is live, so you can call in at the second half and participate your poetry or your nasheeds, and you can answer the weekly question which we will reveal in the second half. But before we move on to the topic, Brother Zaikham has the ayat of the week.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. O you have faith, be wary of Allah and be with the truthful. Surah number 9, ayat 119.
MashaAllah, very well said. And I believe you have a hadith from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, which is our topic today.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The hadith states, knowledge is a shield, truthfulness is might, ignorance is abasement, understanding is glory, generosity is success, good behavior causes friendship, he who has knowledge about his time, ambiguous things do not attack him, and determination is mistrust.
MashaAllah. Now today's topic is about Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, as I said before, and just a very brief insight on the early life of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. It is known that from various history books and various sources of hadith that when Imam as-Sadiq was a young boy, he used to come to the schools and madrasas founded by his father, the fifth Imam, and instead of learning as many other youngsters and other people did, he used to discuss serious matters of fiqh and jurisprudence with much older students of the madrasas. And Brother Zaikham, how can we look at the young Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq and be influenced by it?
Thank you for giving us a brief information about the early life of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. Now, if we look at the life of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, which you've described to us, that at such a young age he will go to the madrasas, and instead of just educating himself, obviously he was an infallible and he was the Imam of the time. He already had knowledge from beforehand, and Allah had given him knowledge because he had imamat, he was the Imam of the time. Well, not at the current time when he was in his early life, because Imam Muhammad Baqir and Imam Zayn al-Abidin were there. But he used to go there and used to discuss very serious topics about jurisprudence and fiqh. What we should learn from this is, as a society, as the youth, we should take interest in reading books and seeking knowledge. Now, I'm not saying that we should have immense knowledge and start, but if we start off by having small amounts of knowledge, that we can have discussions that adults would have and not conform to the society that they say you should be this old or you should be at this age when you learn this, that we should take knowledge at any age. I remember Imam Khomeini, when looking at his biography, that he was a Hafiz al-Quran at the age of 6, mashallah. Now, we should take example of this, and he was a human being as well, and I'm not even a Hafiz al-Quran. So I should take example first before I tell other people that I should take more interest in gaining knowledge and have serious topics like Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq did at his early age.
MashaAllah. Now you said about Imam Zayn al-Abidin as well, who was the grandfather of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. And obviously he was scarred emotionally by the tragedy of Karbala. And although 22 years had passed, there is that he still used to weep and supplicate for the the tragedy of Karbala so much so that his grandson, he used to look at him and be very intrigued by the way he supplicates, because that's how he used to do. So there's a saying that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq used to be so intrigued and interested by the way Imam Zayn al-Abidin used to supplicate that it was as if he was in the tragedy himself. So looking at this, Brother Hazar, how can we be influenced by it?
For society nowadays, in Western society especially, we got to look at the way that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq was brought up by his great grandfather, which was Zayn al-Abidin, which was constant reminders of the tragedy of Karbala, which he constantly reminded of the sacrifices that the Ahlul Bayt made to save the Prophet of Islam, the religion of Islam. And as he said, even 22 years after the tragedy, the memory was still fresh in of the tragedy, and this helped him appreciate the love and the sacrifices of Islam, especially the Ahlul Bayt, what they did for Islam especially. And for us, we've got to look at the Western society, that how parents can influence their kids in the same way that Imam Zain al-Abidin did, is to take the kids to majalises constantly, not only just in 10 days of Muharram, but throughout the year, so they can be encouraged to love the Imam even more. And there's a quote that says, "In their tears is the washing away of sins." The story of Imam Hussein especially softens the hardest of hearts. So by appreciating this love and gaining this love for the tragedy, for what happened to Imam Hussein and the sacrifice that he made, will help them appreciate the Ahlul Bayt and follow on their footsteps better as an adult.
Linking to my brother Hazik's answer to my answer, which was how we could take influence from the life of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq. And just like Imam Jafar as-Sadiq was affected by Karbala, even though he wasn't there, is the same situation we can be in, that we were in Karbala, but we can be affected in the same way. And the way I want to say is that what I said, to take interest in reading and gaining knowledge, and the story of Karbala is one example from the love of Imam Hussein. And you shouldn't just look at the story and listen to the musaibs and the eulogies. You should look at the story behind Karbala. I remember there's a book I used to read, The Story Behind Karbala. So we should look at that aspect of Karbala as well.
MashaAllah, that's just moving away from the topic of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq and to the topic of Karbala. Brother Ja'far, how have we made the story, the tragedy more diverse, all around the world? Because now you see the tragedy of Karbala everywhere, and the commemorations of Ashura and the 10 days of Muharram as well.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, like to thank you for introducing me. Linking on what Brother Zaygam said, we try to learn from what Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam taught us, but not in the context of the past. We try to learn from what the Imams taught us in this present time. So we can. It's not only about doing kind of religious things and all these kinds of things. We can link that to our day, our context, and Karbala can be spread in many ways. I mean, first of all, the 10thday.com, they spread it through banners, they spread it through posters on buses, on bus stops, and inviting people to our mosques, whether it be our Sunni brothers, Christians, atheists, people from different religions.
Multicultural events.
Exactly, yeah. So if we have multicultural events, we can invite them. At those kind of causes, we can give them the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, about Karbala, who was he, what happened. Also, I mean, in school as well, like you can spread the message in school. I mean, it's not just about going there, studying, and then going home. There is a social life. There is people to talk to. There is friends. And you will be.
The best way to spread the message is through friends.
Yeah, it's good that you say that as well, because a lot of the youth are confused, and if you have that knowledge, you can spread it on. Like you said, in school as well, you could pass on. Yeah,
I remember when we were in school, when we went to the same school, me and Jafar were in the same class, and we used to have topics and talk how not topics of debating and saying why other schools of thoughts are wrong, but discussing and saying why we right, because we follow the same Prophet, and at the end of the day, Imam Hussein was the grandson of the Prophet.
And I think the best of all is Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam said, "Kunu lana du'atan bighayri alsinatikum."
MashaAllah.
In other words, he's saying, try spreading the message without using your tongue. Use your manners, use the akhlaq. Try make our behavior reflect on what the Imams taught us, and then therefore the people around us will therefore learn from us.
MashaAllah, that is very well explained for the youth audience as well. Now, talking about the Imams and the infallibility, Brother Zaym, how can anyone recognize an infallible, and just explain the...
Well, how can we recognize the infallible is the first thing what comes to mind is when you think about an infallible, what's the first thing that comes in mind? That person has spent his whole life not committing sin. That's what infallible means, that he hasn't committed a sin. Now from just that, you can see how great of a personality that person is. We have the 14 infallibles, the 12 Imams, including Rasulullah and his daughter, Bibi Fatimah al-Zahra, Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen. And if there are no sources that show that they committed sin, and if there are, it's probably from their enemies, from our enemies of our school of thought, And those are weak sources at the end of the day. But I haven't
Sin.
seen any sources when I've seen Imam Ali committing a sin or Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq committing a sin. Also, Allah has bestowed such a power to them for their infallibility, and infallibility, a sign of that is miracles as well. And a miracle of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, which is narrated by Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad from Salman, and Al-Husayn ibn Ali from Ibn Jabala, from Abdullah ibn Sinan, who said, Abu Abdullah, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, asked, the fountain which is between Basra and Sana'a, would you like to see it? He replied by saying, yes, may I be sacrificed for you. He said that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq took him by his hand and took him to the outskirts of Medina. Then he struck his foot into the ground, and he said, I saw a river flowing whose banks could not be distinguished except for the place which I was standing in, for it was like an island. I and the Imam alayhi salam were on it. We saw a river on the side which was water whiter than snow, and on the side of that was a river of milk whiter than snow, and in the midst of it was a river of wine better than sapphire. I had not seen anything more beautiful than wine which was between the milk and the water. Now Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq is performing such beautiful miracles under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shows his infallibility. And from the Quran we can say as well, from Surah Ayat al-Tathir, إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
MashaAllah. Now talking about the miracles and the infallibility, as Sayyid Zakham was talking about, one of the most common questions that you get, especially from our little people, is that what kind of miracles can they perform? Because some people say, oh, can they fly, can they teleport, these imaginations from kids. So can you just make it clear to especially our young audience?
I mean, as we know that miracles that are things that prophets do to prove their prophethood. But in the Imam's case, they do have miracles, but it's not that often. It's only under extreme circumstances, and the people think that anyone could perform miracles, or some person of a high status, but it's not that case. It's people like the Imams. They don't perform miracles under their desire. It's only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands them to do so, then they do it. Miracles, there are a lot of miracles that the Imams performed, and I think this proves their prophethood, their infallibility, and it's a good lesson to learn. And I think the biggest miracle in my eyes to see a 65-year-old man live his life to be known as the most knowledgeable, pious, generous and kind person, and live his life known not to commit one single sin. This is Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. So this we can learn a lot from this.
Biggest miracle.
Now before we do move on, just to remind you that in the second half you can call in and answer the question of the week that we will tell you. And there's also a 313 Muhibban al-Mahdi campaign, which you will donate £110 per month to Hidayat TV. So far we've got 20 members. Make sure you join the cause and help Hidayat TV spread the message of the right path. Now, Brother Hazak, we were talking about the school of thought, as Brother Zaram was mentioning. Why are we known as the Ja'fariya school of thought?
To establish a ground here is that we follow the religion of our prophets. We follow the same school of thought as our prophets. Nothing has changed. It is just passed down to Imam. So it was passed down to Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Muhammad Baqir, then Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. The important thing about Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq was at that time there were other school of thoughts being established. So the people who followed the Imam were given the title of Ja'fariyas. That's why we get the name of Ja'fariya school of thought. And the title Shias were given as well, because we are the Shias already with followers, which means there's a hadith from Imam, our 11th Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam, which states the 5 criteria of being a Shia. The 5 criteria are we have to read Salah on a turba, a visitation of Karbala, reading Bismillah loudly in Salah, and having a qiq ring, Sali alaf home, on the right hand, and 51 rakats of Salah every day.
I would just like to mention that, I don't know, out of the 5 criteria my brother mentioned, 3 of them were concerning Salah, if you can see and recognize. Now, 2 weeks ago, our show was dedicated to the topic of Salah. So that's how much importance namaz is in the religion of Islam and life.
Yeah, the namaz is like the conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, isn't it? Because we don't.
As we were saying last week, the conversation runs in two ways. When you're reading Salah, you're talking to Allah, and when you're reading the Quran, Allah is talking to you. So without any of them,
because that's the best way possible in this dunya to get as closest to Allah as possible.
There's a story from Imam Jafar al-Sadiq talking about Muhib and Shia. He was talking to his followers about, he asked them, where are my Shias? And one of the followers stood up and said, oh Imam, are we not your Shias? And he said, do you follow everything that we follow? And he looked down and he said, sadly we don't. And he said, you're not my Shia, you're my Muhib. Muhib means lover. Anyone can be a Muhib of the Ahlul Bayt, but only few with the specific criteria becoming a true Shia.
Selected
groups. So,
MashaAllah, that's very well said as well. That's like a reminder as we, we're talking about Imam Jafar Sadiq from a young age, being the Hafiz of the Quran and whatnot.
Another story I'd just like to add, it's been narrated that an atheist came to challenge one of the Imam's students, Abdullah al-Disani, as I remember. He came to the students of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, Hisham ibn al-Hakam, and he questioned him in his belief in God. He questioned the power of the Almighty, and he further continued with his question, saying, can the Almighty put the whole world inside an egg without enlarging the egg or diminishing the volume of the world? Now Hisham told him he will go back, give him ear, and then he will reply to him. So Hisham went to the Imam and then he asked him about the challenging question. Now what the Imam said, he said, how many sense organs do you have? What is the smallest of them? Hisham said there's 5, and the pupil is the smallest, and he compared it to the size of a grain or a lentil or a part of it. Now the Imam said, look around you, what do you see? He said, I see the buildings, I see the mansions, I see trees, I see a lot of things. And the Imam said, he who can create a pupil and let us see the world, see all these mansions and all these trees in the size of a grain or the size of a lentil or part of it, can he not create the world in an egg?
MashaAllah,
MashaAllah, these are the answers. Even the answers seem like miracles to us. For if you go to a man of science, even though Imam Jafar al-Sadiq was known for science, and if you read about his life, you'll see that he had a huge contribution to the science of man. But also looking at these answers, we can see how great knowledge they had contained in their minds and their personalities. And from their personalities we can learn and fall in love with them. How can we not see that this is a miracle in itself and they are not infallible?
Well, because nowadays we don't realize the importance of the Imams, the importance of the family of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is because he started everything off, and then his Imams, the vast knowledge improved the religion even more, because the religion is basically perfect, isn't it? And we should strive to be like the Imams, although most of us won't be like the Imams, but we should strive to get as close to perfection as possible, because that's the problem nowadays.
Quran is stated as the miracle itself, and the Imams are said to be the walking Quran. So their life is a miracle itself.
Exactly.
So when people ask for miracles like breaking a moon or having a new rivers formed, they're just tiny things compared to the life of the Imams. What they have accomplished in
the
their
knowledge
life
is the miracle.
Knowledge is the biggest miracle.
Now there are miracles that we're hearing, just like I said, about the rivers and everything, and about the answers he's given. But the biggest miracle is the love they show towards us and the knowledge they have given us. That is the biggest miracle. The biggest miracle is the Quran, that Allah is talking to us, and we need the walking Qur'ans to translate and help us understand the Quran. Without the Ahlul Bayt, there is no Quran. Without the Quran, there is no Ahlul Bayt.
And they're giving us all the tools to get into heaven. It's just we need to reach and
they are the 2 wings of the same bird. Without one wing, the bird can't fly.
That's you have to when people ask you questions like, what can we do to be as close as to the Imams, or to be as closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as possible? You could say one of the biggest thing is salah, obviously pray salah, be as sinless as possible, and also read the lives of the Imams like Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Watch how he from a young age until his death, how he was changed his whole life. I mean, he dedicated his whole life just for the sake of Allah.
Salah is the biggest criteria within Islam, and the Ahlul Bayt try to emphasize it as much as they can, and especially in Imam Hassan Askari's alayhi salam's hadith, which talks about the 5 criteria of a Shia, is 51 rakats of Salah each day. If you think about the compulsory of 17, so add another how many to get 51. So these are criteria of
34 rakats, yeah.
He's time off, right? These are another criteria of being a proper Shia. So Salah is the most emphasized point within our school of thought, and this helps us get close to Allah. This is a conversation, just like as my brother gave example of a bird. A conversation is happening during Salah with Allah. Without with knowledge of from the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, we cannot have a conversation with Allah during Salah.
I remember listening to this story, which is on YouTube. It was a lecture by a sheikh, and he was talking about the value of being a Shia, that how great it is to have such a status or to acquire such a possession. And what he was saying is that it's a long story, but long story short, there was a beautiful hadith, he said, and basically a man went to Imam Raza alayhi salam, and he said to him, he was in a time of despair, a time of difficulty. So he went to Imam Raza alayhi salam, and he said, "Oh Imam Raza, I need your help." Imam Raza looked at him, and you know what he said? He goes, "You look fine, you're in perfect condition." He goes, "Imam Raza, I need your help for there are debt collectors who are coming to my doors, and they are scaring my family away, and they are ruining my reputation. I need your help, Imam Raza. I need money." So Imam Raza looked at him again, and he goes, "You look perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with you." So he cried another time. He goes, "They will kill me. My children will have no father. Help me, Imam Raza. Look at me. I'm pleading for your help." Imam Raza looked back at him, and he said, "Okay, I'll do a deal with you. You are a businessman. You understand this deal." He goes, "Okay." He goes, I'll give you all the gold in the world. All the gold." He replied with joy. He said, "Oh Imam Raza, that will be perfect." He goes, "But on one condition." He goes, "What, Imam Raza?" Imam Raza goes, "You have to give me your love that you give towards my family. I need your love, and I'll give you all the gold in the world." He replied by saying, "Never." He goes, "Then why do you say that you are poor when you have something as wealthy that you're not willing to give all the gold in the world?"
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. So love is more than anything in the world, basically.
Most valuable, yeah.
MashaAllah.
There's another story, this short story of from Imam Jafar Sadiq, which talks about the status of the Imam. It is a pilgrim came to the masjid. He was reading Salah, and he had, in his bag he had 1,000 dinar, something like that. I would like to continue the story on later if you can.
Yeah. And just to remind you that the second half, you could call in, and you could participate as well, and you can read your poems, and your nasheeds and whatnot. And there's also a question of the week that we will reveal, and there is a prize for it as well. So make sure you tune in after the break. Jazakallah for watching so far.